Hello, BookTube. Very, very early this morning, the crack of dawn, when the urine smells on the subway are still fresh, I was out and about. And when all of the unpleasant stuff that I had to do was done, it was time for some pleasant stuff. The Brattle bookshop in downtown Boston was just opening. The carts were just wheeling out. For those of you who are new to the channel, that is a used bookstore in the heart of downtown Boston. It's a fantastic place, great turnover. Books on every subject, double stacked often on many shelves, double stacked, with a sale lot outside for bargain books, $1, $3, and $5. Thousands of them. Not just one barrow here or there, but thousands, a whole lot full of sale books, organized only by price and refreshed all the time. So you never know what you're going to find out there. Never. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but I've actually had an occasion to test that. For a long time, for years and years, I worked at a big retail bookstore right around the corner from the Brattle, a minute's walk away. So I went to the Brattle literally every day for lunch, and came back with books every single time because the lot is always changing, and also because there are so many books that you're bound to miss some. On a meticulous scouring of the lot, you're bound to miss plenty of books. Your eyes just blur over. It's just natural. And on top of that, your own reading changes. I've had it happen many times that on a Monday, I will go to the Brattle, I will scour the outdoor lot, get an armload of books, and then over the course of that week, gaps will open up in my reading, vortices will open up in my interests, and suddenly I go back to the Brattle on Friday, and they're books that I remember looking at, I now want that I didn't want before. So it causes a great influx of books, but I can handle that. If you're careful about your books, and if you're careful about getting rid of them as well as getting them, there's nothing wrong with indulging yourself at the Brattle Bookshop. If you ever come to Boston, please allow me to meet you at the Brattle Bookshop, and we can indulge together. It's entirely possible that I will even pay. Anyway, I went to the Brattle just as they were wheeling out the carts. That's always a fun moment. And I got a bunch of books. Just a bunch of books. Now, I'm going to show you. It's a pile of books here, but you have to keep in mind, I got a pile every bit as big as this that I'm not showing you. Because they're for you. Because they're for people who might be watching this video. I don't want to spoil the surprise. So these are only the ones I got for myself. And there are quite a few mass market paperbacks to start things off. I know that's a little bit odd for me to say. Just the other day, I was talking about a book by Mordecai Rickler, a mass market paperback of his collected essays and book reviews and whatnot. And I was complaining about the format. I wasn't complaining about his writing. I was complaining about the mass market format, where it's ungenerous, and you have to pry it open like a clamshell, and it snaps closed the minute you're not paying attention to it, and it's hard to make marginalia, and it's hard to keep it from falling apart because they're not all that durable. I want to stress here, in my own defense, that that Mordecai Rickler paperback was a bit of an exception. I don't usually find mass markets that are that stingy, that are that unfriendly. So I'm not against the format at all. In fact, I agree with a lot of people who say that it is an example of a perfect technology, which is something I can't say about my beloved ebooks. They aren't perfect, right? If they were perfect, they would be $2 a piece. They would have a million hyperlinks. They would come with tons and tons of relevant artwork. That there would be a whole floor, a whole division at publishing houses designed to soup up the ebooks. So you'd have people, you get an ebook, you'd have people going through it and hot linking the proper names to common domain portraits that they found on Wikipedia. So that the whole thing, so that you hover on that word and a portrait pops up. Ebooks aren't anything like the promise that they could have. They're not perfect technology, but a mass market paperback, just about as perfect as a piece of reading technology gets. I acknowledge that, even though I have pretty much moved on for the bulk of my reading to ebooks, but not when I'm prowling around at the Brattle. So I've got a bunch of mass market paperbacks, and the first two, actually the first three, there are many slogans, many attitudes that I develop about the Brattle, having gone there so long. I know it really well. One of the attitudes that I always say is the Brattle will provide. If I come across a gap, one of those vortices that I was talking about, if I come across a gap, if I'm suddenly looking for something, maybe something I'm reading, a book review, reminds me of a book, and I think, oh, where's my copy of that? Now I want to reread it. I suddenly realize I don't have it, which is an endemic problem. If you give away as many books as I do, you are going to have that problem. When I encounter that moment, unlike a lot of you who maybe don't have access to a shop like the Brattle, when I encounter a moment like that, I don't think, oh, I better hop online. I better look around on eBay, see if I can find a copy that looks trustworthy. Instead, I think the Brattle will provide. None of this stuff is heart surgery. None of it is absolutely necessary. None of it's urgent. So just wait. Just keep it in mind, and the next time you see the book at the Brattle will show you it, and then you'll have it. That is one of the slogans that I use. Another slogan that I use is that it revolves around a curse, a book collecting curse that I bring on myself. It's a self-inflicted curse. I will often find at the Brattle, one of the things I say about the Brattle is don't coerce the gods. You can't force the karma of the outside sale lot. Like I said, it's not organized. And you can't try to impose order on it. You can't go out to the sale lot and say, I'm looking for Dr. Strange and Mr. Norrell, or you won't, Mr. Strange and Dr. Norrell, or whatever it is. You can't go out there and say, oh, like Piranesi, there's an easier title to remember, or Crimson Petal and the White. You can't go look at the sale lot, this whole building's floor plan full of space with thousands of books crammed in all nooks and crannies, and say, all right, well, I'm going to look around here for one book. If you do that, you won't find the book, and you won't find anything else that you want either. You can't push the karma of the cards. I always say that. And one of the curses that goes along with that is that when I find books in series in the sale lot, they will almost always not be together. So if you're looking in the sale lot and you find volume 2 in a series of 4 books, let's say, like for instance, there was, once upon a time, I think it was Viking, did a little hardcover mass market 4-volume set of English poetry. Little volumes, very nice set. Hardly any notes that I remember, hardly any introduction, just the poems. Very pretty set. And one time I was shopping at the Brattle and I found volume 3 in a hardcover with a dust jacket. Long gone, but I did find it. I did have it, and I did enjoy it. But I found that copy while I was browsing the Brattle sale carts, and instead of immediately bolting inside to make a note to myself that I need the other 3 volumes, I thought, no, though, there's a good chance the other 3 volumes are out here in the sale cart. So just keep an eye out for them, but don't look for them. If you start to look for those specific volumes, you not only won't find them, you won't find anything else you're looking for. You can't ever have an intent at the sale carts. You have to let karma happen. And as a result of that, I often buy incomplete sets at the Brattle, figuring if they're not in the sale lot now, they're in a box in the basement, and they will come up eventually. What are the chances that somebody would buy 1 volume of that 4-volume English poetry set and not have the other 3? Of course, all 3 came to the Brattle. They just weren't in the right box. They aren't up at the right time. And so I buy incomplete sets at the Brattle, which causes me to curse myself with incomplete sets here that I'm not going to remember how to fill. The classic case in point being Patrick O'Brian. Patrick O'Brian's Aubrey and Maturin series. I'm collecting the hardcovers of that series. I had the hardcovers, all of them at one point. I got rid of them. No idea why. I had the beautiful box set. Got rid of it. No idea why. Had the mass market paperbacks from the UK. Got rid of them. No idea why. Had the trade paperbacks. I found all of the trade paperbacks at the Boston Public Library book sale about 5 years ago. Got rid of them all. No idea why. Probably one of you. I said, hey, can you box those up and mail them to me? And my answer was always yes. It's got to be no. It's got to be ruthless. But I have a whole bunch of those Patrick O'Briens. I think I'm missing 2. And I can't for the life of me remember to write a note to myself on my phone telling myself which 2 it is. So I'm cursed, like the Flying Dutchman, to buy every Patrick O'Brien that I see that I'm sure that I have the first 4. And I'm sure that I have the last 4. But in the middle, I have no idea. So I found a UK mass market paperback of Lettermark by Patrick O'Brien and got it. These were never brought out in mass market in America. And I haven't checked yet. I haven't looked on the shelf yet to see whether or not this is one of the ones that I need. Even if it is, I want the hardcover. I want the deckled edge hardcover with the dust jacket. It will show up. The Brattle will provide absolutely for the 2 that I'm missing. But I don't remember if this is one of them or not. So I grabbed it. This is a terrific point in the story. These are the story, the adventures of a British Napoleonic-era seafaring captain named Jack Aubrey and his friend Stephen Maturin. who is a doctor, but also a sort of an unofficial espionage agent for the British government against Napoleon. And they become best friends. It's a great portrait of male friendship, another great and very rare portrait of male friendship. And at one point in the series, Jack Aubrey, who is fairly clueless on land, you won't find a more ruthless and knowledgeable enemy on the open ocean. But he's a fairly easy booby mark when he's on land. And he is accused and convicted of a crime he didn't commit and broken out of the service. And it breaks his heart. Not for the social opprobrium, although that is a factor, because it means he won't be in the Navy anymore, which is his whole life and world. And Maturin, who is occasionally very poor in the course of these novels, but he's also occasionally unbelievably rich, just depending on the spoils of his trade, he buys a vessel out of service, and it becomes a letter of marque. It becomes basically a privateer, with Jack Aubrey as the captain and the pick of his crew as the crew, following the Byzantine rules and regulations that govern a letter of marque as opposed to a ship of the line. It's not Aubrey's perfect scenario. He wants to be back as a captain of a British naval vessel. But I remember this book being tremendously enjoyable. I'll probably read it again. I don't know. If I don't have the hardcover, I might read this mass market paperback. I got it anyway. It was $1, so I got it anyway. Of course, that's a nice thing about the Brattle sale lot, is that the things you want are $1. They're $3. It's not going to break the bank to take a chance. This is the ultimate chance. In fact, some of you, the carpers, might say this is the ultimate waste of money. I already know I don't want this volume. not exclusively. I may reread this, but I know with the form I want this in, and it's a hardcover with a dust jacket. It's not this thing. But I grabbed it anyway. Same thing with this next one. This next one is about as perfect an example. These next two, about as perfect an example of the motto the Brattle will provide as I can imagine. In a video months ago, Randall Jarrell's name came up. Randall Jarrett was a science fiction and fantasy author. He was a con creature. He went to cons all the time. He was well known to go. He was a favorite from fans. Fans loved it because he would talk endlessly with them. He would get drunk with them. He would love to look at their stories. This was in a pre-21st century era where fans weren't always hustling to make a name for themselves. They weren't always trying to just hand this author their manuscript. A lot of them just wanted to share a beer with an author they really liked. And Randall Jarrett was perfect for that, which is why he was so popular at conventions. But he was what was known at the time in the 20th century as a male chauvinist pig. That term has a kind of a glossy, nostalgic fuzz all over it, but it was meant as a pointed insult. It was men who were unbelievably sexist and just acting like children. An embarrassment, not just to the women around them, but to the men around them, the men who weren't sexist. It was as embarrassing then as it is intensely legally actionable now. I prefer it when the assembled company of the men around you, your peers, were saying, "What kind of a maladjusted loser are you? Knock it off. What on earth are you doing?" I prefer that to camera footage, to scanned social media feeds, to cancellation. I prefer that to cancel culture. I don't know that one or the other had any better results. I think the results aren't going to come from the people who are doing it. It's going to come from teaching children the correct way. It's going to come from teaching children not to be sexist. I think that's the only way to get rid of it. And I think the 21st century has an enormously greater chance of doing that than the last half of the 20th century did. The 21st century takes that seriously. So children are actually being taught. Instead of a gesture here and there, children are actually being taught a greater consideration for everyone. I think that can only redound to the benefit. I think that is certainly in a few years, that is certainly going to make a crop of just better 15-year-olds than we ever were. I can't help but believe that will largely be true. Anyway, Randall Jarrett was that. So he was that. He was a male chauvinist pig. He was the guy at the convention with the busy hands, with the dirty mouth, with the dirty mind. And if you were a great female science fiction author and you wanted to go to the con for the same reason that he did, to meet your fans, you just had to put up with that. It wasn't like the 21st century where that would get the man expelled from the convention. It was just sort of the background furniture. in a really sad way. The women who were better writers than most of the men who were making these jokes about them. I mean, imagine Isaac Asimov having the cojones to make sexist banter about Ursula Le Guin. The talent levels aren't even anywhere near each other. Imagine that. Randall Garrett did that all the time with everybody, and if you were a woman going to convention, you just had to deal with it. His name came up here months ago, and I mentioned at the time that there was a best of Randall Garrett that was edited by Robert Silverberg, his friend Robert Silverberg, that was really, really good. That it was put out by Timescape. It had a bunch of great selections from his work and a great Rowena cover. And that I had it. Once upon a time, I had all of those best of volumes for all different kinds of authors. And that's the volume of him that I would want. And right after I mentioned that, I found the Gondolara Cycle, which was largely written by Randall Garrett's wife, not him, oddly enough, considering what a sexist he was. But I still wanted that volume. A couple of you were very generous, sent me very big electronic collections of his work. And I was very grateful for that, but I still kept thinking, that's the mass market paperback that I want, and the Brattle will provide. And it did. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the Timescape volume of the best of Randall Garrett. Great. Fantastic. So I reread Robert Silverberg. If I remember correctly, it's been, I can tell you, 1982, 2002, 2012, 2022. It's been a long time. It's been 40 years since I read this. But I seem to remember Robert Silverberg's introduction was incredibly heartfelt. So I'll read that. Maybe I'll read a Lord Darcy story or something or other in there. But that was great. That was a perfect example of the Brattle will provide. And this next one is also an example of the Brattle will provide. I showed you the other day a mass market paperback of Frank Herbert's Dune with a black cover, an inset illustration with two little figures on a sand dune, casting long, needle-sharp shadows on the sand. And I remember telling you how much I love that cover, but how much I miss the old science fiction cover, the mass market cover that I and everybody else had for a million years. It was just, this thing alone sold millions of copies. And I thought at the time, if you're going to get a second copy, another copy of Dune, and you want that cover, the Brattle will provide. And it did. It did. This is the cover I was referring to. A cover of Dune that does not have sandworms on it. A cover of Dune that really doesn't make any sense. We are told in the book that Dune's sun does not look yellow. It looks white. I don't know what this is in the background, and those people there are obviously Fremen, but why are they wearing billowing white clothes? No idea. Objectively speaking, it is not a good Dune cover. It's not anywhere as good as the black mass market paperback that I showed you. It's not anywhere near as good as the new pocket paperback edition of Dune with the wavy psychedelic artwork. To say nothing of any of the trade paperbacks. The Science Fiction Masterworks cover has a gigantic worm on the cover. It's fantastic. But I wanted to have this. This is the volume that I think a lot of people watching this video read this book as once upon a time, 40 years ago. So I grabbed it. It was $1, so I grabbed it. Then these next four are also mass market paperbacks. And the reason I grabbed them is in part because mass market paperbacks, I believe, are going. Simple attrition will mean we see fewer and fewer of them in bookstores. That is a long, slow process that takes decades to happen, but it's been decades. It's been more than a decade since the last mass market paperback was published that wasn't strictly genre. And most of them are 60 years old, 60, 70 years old. That is not sustainable. If those aren't being made anymore and they're extremely flimsy, then it stands to reason that you're going to see fewer and fewer of them. Certainly I do. I remember once upon a time, it seems like just a minute ago, probably it was 20 years ago, I remember once upon a time, in that Brattle sale lot, there would be hundreds and hundreds of mass market paperbacks because they're what people sold. They aren't what people sell anymore. So I grabbed these because of the condition they're in. They're all perfect. They're all perfect condition mass market Penguin classics. First, Thucydides, just as clean as the day it was born, and then 3 of the 4 Penguin volumes of Livy. Everything but the War with Hannibal. But even so, these copies, Early History of Rome, Rome and Italy, and Rome and the Mediterranean, these things are in better shape than the battered mass market paperbacks that I have of them from decades ago. So I grabbed them. This thing still has a sheen on the cover. for Pete's sake. So for $1 a piece, yes, absolutely. But then there were books that weren't mass market paperback, so I thought we'd go through those. This one is from New York Review of Books Classics. This is a hardcover that they did. I don't remember ever seeing it before, but I am interested, especially if it's $1. This is Reading and Writing, a Personal Account by V.S. Naipaul. There is Trinidad, a rainy street in Trinidad on the cover, and it's a slim little thing. It's just a few meditations that Naipaul had on his history with reading, his earliest memories of reading, his history with writing, when he thought he could be a good writer, when he started to write, and how. This is an author who's written a lot, a huge library shelf full of books. And also, I believe, has written a classic. A House for Mr. Biswas, I think, is a classic novel, a great novel of the 20th century. And I don't know, he's written a lot of nonfiction too, and I have a lot of it. But I don't know the full extent to which my sort of inner recoil from V.S. Naipaul is the result of how much biographical writing about him has come out in the last 30 years that universally depicts him as an odious human being. I don't know how much of that has seeped over into my reaction when I see his name. I'm just consoling myself here that reaction never lasts when I read his prose. I actually do like his prose. It's a little Daunish for my taste, but I can take it in this length, absolutely, especially since I'm not sure that I've ever read anything that's in here. So I was happy to grab it. This next one is older anyway. When did this come out? Oh no, I don't know when this came out. Very intentionally, I don't. Oh no. Okay. Oh, well, all right. This is on a subject that I really like. This is Ralph Dutton's book, The English Country House, with the lovely cover there. I was at the Brattle. See, a little bit of this is ripping off the front. And a friend of mine was ringing me up, and I said, "Oh, could you be? I want to be really careful with this cover until I get it home, so that I can reattach that. It's ready to fall off." And he said, "Well, should I put Mylar over it, to protect it?" I had no idea that the Brattle offered that. I don't know if they do. Maybe it's just me. Bit of a sacred cow there, or maybe they were just eager to get rid of me. One way or another, I don't have to reinforce this cover. You just put Mylar over it. But this is a subject that I love. The English country house, its history. This has all sorts of photos and whatnot of English country houses. I can't tell you when this came out because somebody cut those pages out of this volume. I did not notice that. We go straight to the beginning, straight to the introduction. I believe this book came out in the 1930s, but I believe that this was Ralph Dutton's first book. And it's just a rambling kind of personal historical essay about the English country house. I have a few of those. Edith Sitwell did one. Vita Sackville-West did one. And I love them. I love to read them. I have a fascination with this particular subject, not only because I think it represents a weird aspect of English history, but also because I've been to a lot of these places. Ralph Dutton had a country house of his own. He had a big, beautiful, friendly country house of his own in Hampshire for a long time. He was a member of the English nobility, and he was the last of his line. The line ended with him. He had no heirs. And the library in his house in Hampshire was unbelievable. It might, for all I know, still be there. He gave the house, he sold it to the National Trust. So you can still go to his house in Hampshire and see it. It's been totally restored. It's open to the public, probably 2 days a week, something like that. And for all I know, the library that he loved, it wasn't an affectation at all. He used to go into that library and enjoy himself reading in just the way that you and I do, despite the fact that his family coat of arms was established hundreds of years ago. It doesn't matter. The love of books is a great leveler. He used to go in. That was a working library, is what I'm trying to say. It was a working, loved library. Probably it has been neatened up, put behind glass, and is on display for tourists. I'll have to look into that. I'll have to see if his house is available for tourists, for tourism. I saw it before it was part of the National Trust, so I know it well. It's jarring to me to think that I will never be inside it again, and this has an extra relevance for me because I just finished reading Robert Hughes's essay on. Some of you will have seen a book in used bookstores called the Art Houses of England, I think it was called. It's a big, beautiful, full-color catalog to an art exhibit that went through America about art taken out of English country houses, palatial English country house art. In Nothing If Not Critical, Robert Hughes did a review of that show that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He was appreciative of a lot of what he saw, but a lot of the whole world of the English country house came under his view, and it was great to read him. So I got this as well. This was part of a series, the Face of Britain series, several of which I would like to have if I could find them. There were quite a few that came out. In fact, the whole of the thing might have come out in the Pimlico trade paperbacks, but a lot of those I don't want. There were a lot of books in the Face of Britain series that were just studies of counties. And no matter how eloquent those are, I don't want any of those in Pimlico trade paperback or anything else. This is a subject that I want. There was one on Ireland that I really would like to find, but I was happy to find this. Absolutely happy. It's now that I have a little more breathing room here for books, one of the thoughts that's crossed my mind is to finally put things together thematically instead of having them everywhere. I have at least 20 books on English country houses scattered around here, but they're not together. Not two are next to each other. And that's frustrating. Not for me, not always, but I'll see if I want to do that. And then this last one is topical. This is, after all, Shakespeare, a month when myself and a few other booktubers are celebrating Shakespeare, and this is a Shakespeare book that I just love. I always invoke the idea of a mythical Shakespeare shelf of maybe 20 books that any amateur Shakespeare fan absolutely has to have, and this would be one of them. The second edition of the Riverside Shakespeare, Shakespeare After All by Marjorie Garber, Shakespeare Sonnets by... the name's gone right out of my head. Our greatest living poetry critic. The name's gone right out of my head. She did a book on Keats. She did a book on Shakespeare. I have them both. Name's gone right out. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not going to come back to me while I'm trying. The name's gone right out of my head. But in addition to those books, this, I would say, would be one of them. And it is Berryman's Shakespeare. The poet, the hirsute poet, John Berryman, often would write about Shakespeare. And this book collects all of his writings on Shakespeare. And a lot of them are amazing. Just amazing. I had this in a trade paperback. I think I had it in a hardcover when it first came out. Did I? Let's see. 1999. No, probably not. I wasn't mostly back in the country in 1999. Well, one way or another, I've had this many times, but I didn't have it now. As soon as I saw it for $1, I realized I didn't have it, and I want it. I want it. Shakespeare or no Shakespeare, I want a Shakespeare collection that is those 20 books, and I will. It's driving me crazy that I can't remember the name of the person who. I can't remember her name, even though I recommend her all the time. She's a great poetry. Oh, Helen Vendler. Helen Vendler, of course. Helen Vendler. So Helen Vendler's big, oversized book of on Shakespeare sonnets with the CD disc in the back of the sonnets. That is a Shakespeare book that you want to have. Shakespeare, After All, is a Shakespeare book you want to have. Anthony Burgess's book on Shakespeare is a Shakespeare book you want to have. But this is as well. So I'm very, very happy to find it. And there you go. That was my Brattle haul. It feels wrong to say because there's so many books that I'm not showing you, but they're going in the mail. So I can't show them to you. So let's do a Steve Pyramid since it appears to be the thing to do. Hannah at Hannah's Books did a book haul of her haul of books from the Brattle when she came to Boston a week ago. And when she was done, she delighted the pee out of me by doing a Steve Pyramid at the end. Mark Richardson has been sort of tweaking me by doing a Steve Pyramid at the end of every one of his own book hauls. I now order the rest of you to do it. If you have a book haul, you must end with a Steve Pyramid. And the grade of success for your Steve Pyramid goes steadily up. Making a Steve Pyramid means you have done a book haul. If you don't end with a Steve Pyramid, no one can hear what you're saying. What? So ending with a Steve Pyramid at least gets you in the game. Then you can do the next rung on the ladder. One step up from the bottom is the version that Hannah did, where you make your books into a pile and then grab them at the bottom with both hands and stand up with them. I suppose, if you're going to do that, if you don't want them to go flying everywhere. But the perfect Steve Pyramid is one in which you place all the books on the splayed fingers of your hand and just suck it up, even though it's really heavy. If I can do it at age 590, I'm pretty sure you can do it. So we have Barryman Shakespeare. We have The English Country House by a man who knows whereof he speaks, by an English lord who grew up in an English country house and knows whereof he speaks. Never read the book before. Then we have Writing and Reading, a personal account by V.S. Naipaul, an NYRB classic hardcover. What else do we have here? Rome and Italy by the great Roman historian Livy. One of my favorites, Livy. The Early History of Rome. This is where we get Romulus and Remus and all that stuff. This is from Livy as well. Rome and the Mediterranean, also by Livy, where Rome is steadily branching out to become an empire, to make the Mediterranean our sea. Then The Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. Of course, I don't love him as much as I love Herodotus. And there was a Penguin Mass Market copy of Herodotus there, but it was battered to pieces. Same thing with the Penguin Mass Market copy of The War with Hannibal. It was there, but it was battered to pieces. It's useless to me, especially as a double. Then Dune, in this particular cover, the one that is so familiar to so many of you of a certain age. The Best of Randall Garrett, edited by Robert Silverberg with the inimitable Rowena cover. And finally, Letter of Marque by Patrick O'Brien in a UK mass market paperback that probably duplicates a hardcover that I already have. Probably. But I couldn't leave it behind because there's no feeling worse than leaving a book behind at the Brattle, getting back to where you are, and realizing that you want it. There's no feeling worse than that. Because the Brattle the sale lot has a very high turnover. People do find it. No one was there this morning when I was there, but I was there first thing. The people do find it in the course of the day, and books get moved all around. Even if somebody decides they don't want to buy something, they could carry it around the lot and just drop it where it doesn't belong. It's a headache. It's a headache, it's a heartache to leave a book behind at the Brattle that you might want. And the prices are so low out in the sale lot that my advice is always don't do it. Don't leave anything behind. If you have even a momentary impulse to grab it, then grab it and just sort it out. You're not out a lot of money, so you might as well. Anyway, that's my trip to the Brattle. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.